Hi,
Hello.
how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I had a good sleep and a little nap. So
Oh, good. Um, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm doing this for my community engagement project for Lemoyne College. And so they wanted us to reach out to community leaders and, ask them about, the community that we're writing on. And my project is on the Syracuse community. And so for my project, I'd like to be able to put this video on YouTube for the Syracuse community.
great. Great. Let me get myself up here so I can, not just my head. Good. Yeah.
Okay. So my first question for you is, who are you in the Syracuse Community Choir? For people that don't know.
So my name is Karen Mihalyi, and I'm the founder and the director of the Syracuse Community Choir.
How did the choir get started?
Well, you want the long story or the short story?
Probably the short story, because we only have a
Short
half
story.
hour.
Okay. So I had been interested in music and song and choirs, and had done a women's choir at Women Harvest and through the Women's Center for a number of years, kind of encouraged by women who were doing stuff like that, and music that was political, as well as one person in particular, Holly Near, and Sweet Honey in the Rock. I mean, there were a number of groups who were kind of encouraging communities to have as part of their social justice work music and singing. And so I did this women's choir for a number of years, and then it was kind of like, then I went to Nicaragua as a support person to learn about the revolution that was happening there in the early 80s. There in Nicaragua, there was which had been a very poor nation and really under the thumb of a dictator supported by the United States. When they had their revolution, they began to use art and bring art to the people. And so it was known, for instance, as a nation of poets. And poets went out, and people who never knew how to read or write were writing poetry and singing and doing dance. And it was all part of creating a vibrant culture and based on the ideas of justice and peace. So I was like, that was an amazing experience for me. And I decided that I would come back into the United States and start a choir that would include everybody, that would be available to everybody. That the lesson from Nicaragua was that, for me, among many, many other things, was that everyday, ordinary people have the right, it's a right to create beauty and art. And that beauty and art and music, of course, is a really important part of social change and social change movements. And I've known that before, but I really saw how it needed to be available, and it was important that it was available. So I decided to do a choir. I like to use the word choir because I thought it felt a little more sacred, and I feel like singing is sacred. So I put out the word, and that I wanted to do a peace and justice choir, and we had our first rehearsal at Irwin Methodist Church in the basement, and like 80 people showed up. And we didn't have internets or anything, we didn't have any way to do it except word of mouth, then. Yeah. That was in 1985. And I'll talk a little bit more about the accessibility piece, because that came in very closely, but it started through kind of my work as a peace activist. I also started the Women's Information Center, so I was really with other women involved in talking about feminism and women's rights, and I was involved in the anti-war movement, and so I came to it with so singing and music and the art. It seemed so logical to me that it all mattered in terms of creating a world where everyone was welcome and everyone could have a voice and everyone needed to be heard. So that
So,
framework of my life helped me create the choir.
so what were your goals when you started working with the choir? Was social justice the actual goal?
Well, it was both the idea that I had a lot, because I had worked a lot around women's issues, and part of what we were doing in those early days was thinking about the way that we do things is as important as the end result. So the process of getting to someplace was as important as the end. So, and that the personal is political, and in fact, that everything that we do, we should be doing with intention and thinking well about everybody else. And so there's two parts. One was that I wanted to create or help create a community. Our intention was to create a community that every time we met was a safe place, a place for people to come and sing together, that community itself would be prediction to the world where there's a lot of barriers and people aren't necessarily singing or being together in ways that I think are important. And then the second thing was to do music that promoted peace and justice, and that we were all dealing with issues of oppression. This is in our mission, such as racism, homophobia, ableism, and sexism, just such as that, but all oppression also, and also that we would provide a vision for changing the world. We would provide that our material would reflect a position of justice and social change. So yes, the products that we had at the end were important to share with the world, and to be places to sing them and to say another world is possible. But also the way that we did it was also part of the whole thing. And we had right from the beginning, we had children too. Yeah.
So what motivated you personally to sing or to be involved?
Well, I always loved singing. I mean, I was like in the church choir, and when I was in fifth or sixth grade, I organized a little girls singing group, and I played the piano, and we sang in parts like Exodus and Walking in the Winter Wonderland, and then we performed at like little things in our town was only 300 people. I mean, it was the country, but I always loved singing. And when I went to college at SU, I took some voice lessons and did some singing, but then the Vietnam War was starting, and the students, we closed down, and then I dropped out of school and didn't do it. But I loved choruses. I loved singing around campfires. So actually it was organizing, writing a pamphlet for a women's weekend that the Women's Center was sponsoring in the, we sponsored a women's weekend called Women Harvest for many years. It was at a camp, and it had workshops, and I was working on the brochure with a couple of friends, and I said, I've always wanted to direct a choir. And they were like, well, why don't you? I mean, that was, we would just say, do it. And I was like, I don't want to do it, I never directed anything. And I mean, I directed when I was in fifth grade, but I didn't really know. And so I put it in the little brochure. Would you like to sing in a choir? Tell me what, I'll send you the parts. And then all these women signed up. And so then I was like, well, I guess I got to arrange some music. So I asked a friend of mine, and we did several songs, and I did a random rehearsal. I'd never done it before, and it was amazing. It was so beautiful. And like to stand in front of these women and have them, raise their voices when I did. And, and I worked on my beats because I didn't really have much training. My sister was in music school at the time, and so she helped me some, and I was really hooked. I mean, we would practice 2 or 3 times and then do a little concert at night. And when I started the Women Harvest Choir, but it was first just kind of a dreamy dream, and then being supported to do it. And then I began to see how important music was, and I went. Well, there's lots of stories about it, but I ended up going to see. We organized an event with Jane Fonda, and it was called the Indochina Peace Campaign. And she brought along this woman, Holly Near, who sang. And I couldn't believe it that that there was women singing these amazing songs about social justice, because most of the times before that I'd only heard, I mean, great songs, but most of the songs were about loving and losing, you know, and I want you, and you know, you did me wrong, and these were songs about women in Vietnam and getting, you know, a woman who's been abused, and you know, soldiers, U.S. soldiers who were fighting for peace. I mean, really amazing. So I moved then, but I just wanted to, and I always say to people, you know, just do it and see what happens.
Do you believe that singing will help bring social justice to the area?
I think singing, and I'll use art and singing, matter for all communities. I don't think singing alone will bring social justice, because I think we have to do it in connection with action. But I think having community where people are joining and singing, and having events where community comes together and is inspired by and learns more about and is supported to do the work is really important. And also, as in the civil rights movement, and also in Indigenous people, I mean, Indigenous people have been singing together the songs for 1,000 years, and those songs hold that community together. And the same with the civil rights movement and church. You know, singing is a human. Humans have been doing it for a long time, and singing together is a real important thing for communities. And I think
cultural,
it's cultural, yeah, and it's important, but it also can move people to feel brave and to stick together. And I mean, there's so many great stories about the civil rights movement, of people singing as they you know, holding a community together as you work for social justice, but also providing a space for real people's voices to be heard, for the truth to be sung in some way. So yes, but I don't think alone. I mean, I could go out and sing on a mountaintop. I don't know if it would help.
The butterfly effect. Yeah, the butterfly effect would happen.
Yeah, perhaps. But I do think that having places for people to sing. In fact, people don't sing together anymore very much. It used to be you'd sing in churches. Some churches still do, but there's a tradition, many traditions of community singing together that, like you said, culturally hold people together.
Yeah. So what are your plans for the choir's future, or your future in the choir?
Well, we have had, this is our 35th anniversary year, and for 5 to 7 or 8 years now, a group of board members and consultants and leaders, some leaders have been meeting. Of course, the board has always met, but to specifically think about the future of the choir, and specifically think about a succession plan for me. And so we've worked really hard on that, because like a lot of arts organizations, we didn't have a lot of knowledge about management skills or business skills, which is what people really need. We just had really good ideas. And so we ran with the good ideas for a long time, and liked doing the programming, but didn't develop a base to sustain it, which happens to a lot of people. And then we had to start doing that and become more business-like with at least with our books and everything. And so and we had some setbacks along the way, but we've slowly been able to, we had a really generous legacy donation, hire on people who could help with that, consultants and bookkeepers, things like that. And we began to raise more money, to put money aside. We got a big grant from the Community Foundation. Director. So the next step for the choir, this was supposed to be a transition year, a year when we would celebrate the 35th anniversary. We had 2 concerts planned, or 2 events, one with Paul Robeson, one of our collaborators in the community, Paul Robeson Community Performing Arts Company, and Dance Theater of Syracuse. our Onondaga Nation Dance Theater of Syracuse also is one of our collaborators. Onondaga Nation school and people. And we were also going to hire a part-time manager, which I would train, and then the next year we would hopefully raise more money to hire a creative director. That was our plan, and I would move, to more of a consultant or something. But the COVID virus has really stopped us from that plan, and we have to figure out a number of options. It might include it's not going to be the same as we thought, but we are positioned to do it, and it's been an amazing thing that this small organization has been able to get this kind of support, some support to help us continue, because as you might know, I'm the founder of Hard Transition for groups to manage, and so we've been really trying to figure that out, how to share my information as well as support maybe a new way the choir is going to be or something. But right now everything seems really confusing, but that was our plan.
Okay.
I'm happy about that.
Is there a message you would like to give the singers in the choir?
Well,
What would you like to say to them?
I just feel very, very teary.
Oh, I know it's hard with the COVID and everything and not having the weekly meetings.
Yeah, and I love singing with you, and it's singing with you. This is another song by Holly Near, is the best thing that has happened in my life in the terms of the arts, singing with you. So not being able to sing with you and not knowing when we'll be able to sing again, it is very sad. However, the message I'm holding for myself is, let's figure out together how to get through this time when it's not safe for us to sing together. And that's the word out, is actually choirs are one of the more dangerous places you can be, because we're breathing in and we're breathing out and we're singing close, and we're singing in a contained room, and we have sometimes 75 or 80 people in a rehearsal, and we have children and teens also. So it's like, hold on, check in on our Zoom meetings.
Yes.
Let's try to figure out together. I'd like to hear from you, but also I miss you. And I want to thank you for, and the singers have been the backbone of the choir. Singers give a lot of money. They work on fundraisers, they volunteer, they help each other. And singers, we're just not a choir that comes in and sings. We work together.
How does the choir provide support for its singers? And what programs do you have for the singers?
Well, right from the beginning, there were a few women that I had been close to doing and working with in a group, who were women with disabilities, who identified as having disability. And so when and then we began to say, we wanted a choir, we want a world that includes everyone at the table to make decisions. Then we did a lot of thinking about how to include people who identified as having a disability. And then also, not just that, but anyone who had a barrier that was keeping them from fully participating in the choir. So we started looking at what kinds of support how could we dismantle some of those barriers. And one was transportation, because we first thought about it in terms of people with disabilities, because transportation is an incredibly difficult thing for people. And it's not fair, and you're right. So it's just a hard place. So we said, we're going to give rides to people. That's what we're going to do. But, and then it was clear that it's not just we want to give rides to anyone who needs, there was a mom with her 2 kids, she needed a ride. So we said we'll provide transportation. We began to ask and think about, well, if people don't read music, well, we'll have the words available. And what about if I can't see those little, we'll have large print words. We'll have brailing if I can't see. So we began to think about supports in that way, like physical supports. And we always tried to have our rehearsals in accessible buildings. And then we also tried to have like special times when we would give extra help. We also make practice CDs. Well, first they were tapes, now they're CDs. Now we have them more online of the part, so you could have it and listen to it and help. And we're, exploring new ways of really doing more support within rehearsals now, like we were beginning to, writing a grant about it, having a person who's a more experienced singer train as an advocate or a mentor and work closely with someone else who might want to learn how to, who might not be able to sing exactly on the right note or needs help understanding, or might even, like we often have workshops every year, twice a year, where we begin to teach how to read music also. And what do, when someone says measure 55, what does that mean if you want to? So a lot of supports like that. Childcare, we decided to have childcare if people needed it, and we still will. We haven't had to use it for a while, but we do that. And I think, and we always have an interpreter at our concerts, although that's for the audience. So go ahead.
What size audience have you been reaching?
We've been reaching, steadily growing. Like the last couple years we've been, the last few years we've been at St. Paul's Cathedral downtown, which holds about 650, 750 maybe, and we've pretty much had a full house. On one occasion people were standing. Last winter it wasn't a full house. I'm not sure why, but it was still pretty full. And so we have for people who don't know, we have 2 big concerts a year on the solstices, and then we have other performances often throughout the year. Why
is it important to continue the choir? Because you, like you said, the board and you have been working to make sure that it goes on in the future. And so why is that important?
Well, yesterday at our Zoom choir meeting, there was a woman in my group who was talking. My group was, you could ask Karen anything, and we were talking about the choir. And her daughters were in choir, and she was saying that the choir helped frame her life and her children's life. It helped anchor, but it also helped give them a political perspective. And we've had 3 or 4 generations of children grow up in the choir, and these kids learned to sing songs like the South African national anthem in 3 languages. Because Lele Africa, they sang it in the car like we would have sung camp songs. We do a whole amazing program with children where we talk about choosing what the songs mean. And we did for instance, a concert on Sanctuary. We also have supported many other groups, and there are many other communities in the Onondaga Nation, for one, who see themselves as part of the choir, even though they don't necessarily sing, like we did one on Sanctuary. We sang outside the mosque one time when there was some anti-Muslim stuff going on. We raised money for OGs and and his work.
It's okay.
With nonviolence, we've just in the streets. So we have our arms hold many parts of the community that don't often don't interact, I think. And so we have a vital role in the vibrancy of our beautiful city and the different kind of people here. And a lot of people know about us because we've either gone there or we've we've invited people in to just be a part of us. So I think that in the greater community, we have a really important role to play. There's nobody doing what we're doing, which is part, pageant, part political, part funky sometimes, I mean, we're not professional singers, but we have a lot of heart. And then there's the people who sing. And I think there are many people. We have a large percentage of people in our choir who identify as having a disability, so we're doing that kind of support group. But I just think for all of us, there's a feeling of having kind of almost a family or some kind of spiritual group every week when we're rehearsing, where we're getting together. And it's chaotic sometimes, and we're not always perfect about what we do. But I think we fill a very important role that we're pretty unique in that way. I don't know of any other choirs that are trying to do what we're doing, which is.
Is there a message you would like to give to the Syracuse community at large?
Well, keep track of us, because we're going to be, like the other arts groups, trying to figure out our next steps, and we're going to need support. We'll be online. We'll be developing things that we can share. We're trying to hold our mission close. So you can come to anyone can come to our Wednesday night gatherings. We're only doing it for a few more weeks now, but we'll be creating something in the fall. Check out our website, get on our mailing list.
And how does someone do that?
You can get on their mailing list on the website. There's just a place to do that. But if you don't, well, I guess you would if you've seen this, but and there's also a phone on there you can call, and you can just get on the list or something like that. And if you see fundraisers, help us out.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering my questions and for coming on Zoom with me. Let's see. I'm going to be putting this on YouTube, hopefully. And I would like to be able to send you a copy of it to put on the SCC Zoom YouTube page. It might take a little bit while for it to upload, but normally it's not so bad because Zoom records in an MP4 format. Yes. So it's very compatible.
It's already done then.
Yeah. So any last words or any last thoughts that you'd like to add?
Just that our kind of motto is that everyone can sing and every voice matters. And we would love to have you come sing with us.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Yep, I will.
Okay. So that was Karen Mihalyi of Syracuse Community Choir. And as she said, she is the executive director and founder of the organization. And she's taken, some time from her busy day to Zoom with me. And I thank her for her time and her consideration. And I hope that, all of you will go to the Syracuse Community Choir website and join and support and donate, because the arts really need the community support and the community really needs the arts. So check out Syracuse Community Choir, and hopefully you will have an amazing time. Bye.